If formula is very powerful in data analysis as well as in data reporting. In Looker Studio, you write an if statement by using an if formula followed by the condition, then the value that you want to return when the condition is true, and lastly, the value when the condition is false. For example, we can write if the mood equals to happy, then it's good. Otherwise, we want to return the value bad. Hi, welcome. This is SL from Danalyser. This channel shares tips and tricks to help you build practical reports in Looker Studio. In this video, I want to challenge you by using SUM and if formula to find out the answers based on a very popular data science dataset called Titanic. The link to the dataset will be provided in the description below, so you can grab it and download from there. The purpose of this practice is to help you learn how to translate business rules into formulas in Looker Studio. More specifically, we'll learn how to build some if statement from the easy ones all the way to the more advanced and complicated ones, which is very much needed in the real-world business scenarios. This would involve learning logical operators such as and or, and along with some comparison operators such as equals, greater than, lesser than, greater or equal to, or many more. Also, just want to take note here that usually we'll perform some data quality check for the dataset before we start answering questions, but for the sake of this tutorial, which we are going to focus on the formula side of things, so we're not going to do that. In this dataset, we have each row representing a passenger, and I want to bring your attention to 4 important fields that we are going to use in this challenge. The first one is sex, which is gender, followed by age, and then we have P class, which represents passenger class. We have class 1, 2, and 3. The most important field is survive. 1 represents survivors and 0 represents that they have passed away during the incident. For now, we have the sufficient information about the dataset, so let's get started with our challenge today. Now we are going to start off with an easy one. So the first question would be, how many male passengers aboard Titanic? How we're going to do this challenge is, you can pause this video and go to work on your data, and then we are going to come back to this after a 5 seconds countdown. So if you need more time, just pause the video and come back anytime if you like. I'm going to start 5 seconds countdown. Now I'm going to show you how I would approach this question. First, create a calculated field here. So click Add a field, if statement, sex, which represent the gender, equals to male. So here I'm using a small capital letter for the male because that's what it's in the data set. And then we're going to count it as 1, otherwise it's 0. This formula is not complete yet. There are still some work that we have to do. But I want to show you what it means when we look at the raw data row by row with this if formula only. So now I'm going to click Save and Finish. Then I'm going to add a chart here. Just add a simple table. And then you can see that each row is representing the passengers, and then I'm going to drag the new formula that I just created into the dimension. So if you can see, it's actually labeling each passenger with 1 and 0 based on the condition. So now I'm going to just drag and drop the gender, which is sex. You can see that male is always labeled as 1 and female is 0. So imagine if we are just summing up this field right here, question 1 field. This would actually become a total male count. Now I'm going to show a summary rule. And to sum the male count, you could actually just grab the Q1 that we just created into the metric. So now it will automatically sum up. Then it will become a 573, which is a correct answer. But I wouldn't recommend doing this because it is actually a metric and not a dimension. And we are going to use it as a matrix instead of as a dimension. So in this case, I would actually recommend you to edit the formula. Just find the formula here and click on this FX. Then type in the sum formula in front of the formula that you just created and wrap it with a parenthesis. Then click update and finish. Now you will see a chart configuration incomplete error. Don't worry about this, you can just remove the Q1 from the dimension. This error is happening because we have just converted a dimension into a metric, and now the metric has been put into the dimension section of this chart. So to fix that, just have to remove the metric from the dimension area and you will have a correct one here. And now if you drag in the Q1 into the canvas here, you will get 573 for this question. Did you get the first question right? Well done. Now let's move on to the next question. Question 2. How many male passengers from Class 1 survived in the incident? To get the total number based on multiple conditions, I would actually start off with adding a few filters. So just come to add a control and just add a drop down here. So now I need to check the condition. Sex is male and P class is 1 and survive is 1. These are the conditions that we need to put into the formula. So same as the previous question, we will actually create a calculated field first. If sex is male followed by an N, P class is 1, and survive is also 1, then we want to count it as 1, otherwise it's 0. Then we're going to wrap it as sum. I added additional comma here, so just remove that, and yep, we have a tick here and means it's good to go. So click save and finish. Then drag and drop this into the canvas, and the answer is 45. If you enjoyed the video so far, would you mind help me out by clicking the like button below so we can help more people like you? Thank you so much. We're going to move on to question 3. Question 3, we have to calculate the number of passengers aged between 20 to 30 years old, including 20 and 30, who passed away from the incident. You can choose to just write the formula if you're already familiar with the fields that we're using. If you're not, then probably you want to explore the formulas using the drop down, like what we did for question 2. So we have a 1 for age and 1 for survive. So these are the values that we're going to put in our condition. This question is rather straightforward. The more tricky part is how we write the condition to get the numbers in between 20 to 30. Same as the previous question, I'm going to add a field and create a calculated field. I'm going to start off with an if formula and going with age first. So if age is larger or equal to 20 and the age is smaller and equal to 30 and the passenger has not survived the event, then I'm going to count it as 1, otherwise it's 0. So lastly, we're going to wrap it with a sum formula. Click Save and Finish. So you can drag in the question 3 and you'll get the number 218, which is the correct answer. And notice that in this condition here, just make it bigger. Notice that in this condition, we're using larger or equal to 20 or the age lesser or equal to 30. You could also use greater than 19 if you would like, but in this scenario, I wouldn't recommend you to do so because as you can see, in the age values, it actually contains decimal points for the age. So if you would to use greater than 19, it might accidentally include 19.5 or 19.2, like in between 19 and 20. So I would actually recommend you to use greater than or equal in this case. Next, we're going to move on to question 4, which is the last question of today's challenge. So question 4 is how many children 10 years old or younger who are in either class 1 or class 2 survive? Welcome back. Before we reveal the answer, I would like to know if you get 90 or 19 for this question. Comment down in this video. If you get 19, congratulations, you have grasped this concept in and out. For those who get 90, you are actually just one step away. But first thing first, let's translate the rules and put them into the formula. I'm going to start off with if formula. Age is less than or equal to 10 and he or she is in P class 1 or P class 2 and eventually they survive in the incident. So it's survive equals to 1, then we are going to count it as 1, otherwise it's 0. However, here you have to be careful with the order of your operators, how we arrange this entire formula here with the conditions. It actually matters. If needed, we may need to use parentheses to force the precedence order. So precedence order, these terms may seem like a very technical term, but it simply means in which order the computer reads the condition that we write. Because there are no parentheses added in between the conditions, which is this part of the formula, so it doesn't really follow what is required in the question. So if I click Save and Finish, if I put it in here, say that it's actually 90, which is not the correct answer. So let's just examine the formula once again. You may notice that we have AND operators and OR operators mixed up in this formula. It actually has a higher precedence order as compared to OR. In this case, the condition would become like age and P class equals to 1 will be grouped together and P class and the survive will be grouped together. So if we filter using the rules, we can get the first rule, which is 3, and the second rule is 87. This would actually give us the people with less than 10 years old that is in P class 1, and also the people who are in P class 2 and survive, regardless of how old they are. So in actual, we have a 90 of them. How do we fix this is by putting parentheses correctly in the condition. So we're going to go to the Q4 calculated field and we're going to add a parenthesis in between P class 1 and P class 2. Here's a quick diagram to illustrate to you the concept and how the rules actually works after we have fixed it. So you can compare with the previous Venn diagram that we have when the formula is wrong. Don't forget to add the sum formula here, so it helps us to calculate the sum correctly. Q4. Alright, so now we get 19 for this question. Last but not least, I have one bonus tip for you for staying until the end. So what if someone told you that this dataset has accidentally included duplicated records? So that means that we could potentially overcount the number of passengers we have. In this case, we could first identify what is the unique ID here. So the unique ID is something that can tell you that this row is actually a unique row and it's not duplicated. So for our case, it's actually name. To make sure we fix the duplicated data issues, the best way is to clean up the dataset so that it doesn't involve any duplicated records when it's imported to Looker Studio. But if you want a quick fix, we can do it in Looker Studio. First, we're going to just access one of our formula. Here we are actually counting number of rows when we are using SUMIF formula. So now we're going to change it to count number of distinct IDs, which is the name. So in this case, we are going to change the sum into count distinct. And then we are going to change 1 to name and 0 to noun. So click update here and finished. If you see here, the number of passenger for question 1 is actually the same as the previous formula. So now in order to give you a better comparison of these two different formulas, I'm going to go change the data set by adding one duplicated row, and then I'm going to add two different metrics instead of overriding the previous one. So now you can see them side by side. As you can see here, if we are using count distinct, it will actually give us the correct number. But if we are using SUMIF, it's actually giving you an extra 1 count because it's already counting the duplicated entry. Now you know how to transform a SUMIF formula into a count distinct formula. If you want to learn more about count distinct and if formula, click this video to find out more.